Hi, I'm Muir. Welcome back for another video. A lot of people have asked me to do more videos showing the JoolTool, and so I've been working a lot with hollow forms lately, and I figured this would be a really good time to show you a little bit about my process and how I use the JoolTool to kind of speed up my production time when I'm working with these. In this video, I'm going to show you how to take a hollow form that I'm creating. So I've formed a piece on the hydraulic press, or maybe I have something that's already domed, and then I've pierced it out and I've soldered it onto a back plate. So we're going to go from this to this, and I'm going to show you the process of how I use the JoolTool to do all of that work. So at this point I have a pendant. I've got my piece to this point where I've cut out the back shape already, or the back plate anyway. And now I need to prepare this and grind down my edges. Now I can do that with a file. I've already sawed out the majority of this, but I can do this with a file, or I can show you how to do this on the JoolTool and also prepare the back plate so that I can solder on a bail. So let's check this out now. Now first things first, always wear your eye protection and also a mask if you feel like you need that. I do happen to have a vacuum attached to mine, and people ask me a lot of times if I think that the vacuum is worth the expense for the JoolTool, because I do have the actual JoolTool vacuum. I will say without a doubt, I love this, and I have noticed that it makes a very big difference. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is I need to grind away this edge. So I want to start with something fairly coarse. Now I do have an 80 grit that I also use, but I think 120 grit will work for this. This is a ceramic, so it's the purple 120 grit. I'm going to just turn this on, and I'm going to turn on my vacuum as well, and I'll show you how I grind it away. Now you'll notice that my movement is slow and deliberate as I get in here to do some of this. And I can see what's going on because I can see through this disc. And I'm just watching to see what happens. At this point, everything has been smoothed away. I no longer see a seam where I've soldered the two pieces together. So I'm ready to go to the next stage. Now you'll notice that here on the back, I actually had a little accident where I had a piece of solder on my back plate, or on my board, my surface that I was working with, and it soldered onto the back of this. So I'm actually going to take the next grinding wheel, which in this case will be at 220. And I'm just going to kind of clean up the back of this. I'm going to clean up the back of my piece and kind of smooth the edge here from the kind of the kerf that's kind of happened. So you can see everything is now cleaned up. I've got nice, clean, smooth edges. And a lot of times what I'll do now is take this and do some more smoothing on my surface. However, I still have a little bit more soldering to do because I need to attach my bail. But I want to take this to that kind of a fine polish. So I'm going to work through the steps here. Next thing I would do is go to one of my scratch erasers. In this case, this is a fine scratch eraser. And I'll just kind of buff and polish this, and then I will follow it up with my felt wheel and a polishing compound. If you find that this gets too hot to handle, because it will heat up, you can also use the finger tape that comes with your JoolTool and make finger cuts so that as you hold on to your piece, it won't burn your fingers. So now I've actually gone through and I've patinaed my piece. I've got my bail on here. And because we had such a nice finish on the back of this, you can see that it's nice and shiny and smooth. So by doing all of that pre-polish work before I did the soldering of the bail, it made it so that it was able to be polished up beautifully. So here I have the top. It's already patinaed, but I want the top to be a nice bright copper. So let's go back over to the JoolTool and see how to do this now. Because I don't need to do any kind of aggressive metal removal, I'm just going to use a scratch eraser. And this is just going to make sure that everything is nice and smooth and I have a good even surface. Because I did actually have a little bit of solder that worked its way up on top of my piece as I was doing the soldering. So at this point, I've removed any of the surface blemishes that I might have had, any kind of stray solder, any accidental marks or dings from either a saw or a file. And at this point, I could leave it just like it is. However, I want to put more of a high polish on the top surface of this. So now I'm going to move to my felt buff. Going to apply a liberal amount of the polishing compound and then work it on my piece. So here you can see the difference between the part that I did with just the scratch eraser versus this that has now that mirror polish. And you can see how quickly it goes, but you can also see that I'm using slow, deliberate movements. I do give some pressure, but not too much. But you definitely want to allow this to kind of sit in there until you see that polish and shine happening. So now I'm just going to finish this up. I hope that this video helps, and if you have questions about the JoolTool or would like purchasing information, feel free to give me a call.